Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, venture capitalist, securities analyst, and advisor, Morty Davis is a Wall Street legend. In addition, Mr. Davis is an outstanding economist and highly articulate, incisive, and very entertaining political analyst and strategist. He's Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical economic and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the news making the headlines is Len Carter. Len is an investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
Welcome back. It's Wednesday, 6:30 again, and I have the pleasure of interacting with you, my favorite people throughout the world, of all the people in the world, because you contribute to whatever success this podcast has enjoyed and keeps growing. So we will start right away, get to the news of the week, which is the agenda of this weekly podcast. And I am ever grateful for the contributions you as my participants in this effort and cohorts in adjusting the thinking of this podcast and adding to the brilliance of the podcast so far as it exists. So this is Morty Davis again, your Wall Street legend, and I'm happy to be back with you and have you participate with me as my cohorts in dealing with the civil affairs of the United States government, all the news that's supposedly fit to print, and all of the media outlets that make the breaking news. And as such, because the breaking news and the headlines and the important media, I guess headlines or breaking news are inevitably, I find, and you will find as well, overwhelmingly bad news, because good news does not make the front page of the New York Times or your favorite magazines or any of the media, your network television or your cable television. Those are the announcement that annoyingly, to keep you abreast, break into your listening habits and your favorite programs to bring you up to date. So inevitably, they are designed, maybe not deliberately, but of necessity, of bad news, because the good news never makes the front page of the New York Times or your favorite magazines or your network listening habits, even if it's your favorite series, whatever you're listening to, because it's so urgent or so newsworthy and interrupts, and it's never good news. It's always some tragedy, some multiple mass shooting of little kids in classrooms and their teachers, and floods and fires and all of the negatives that are considered so crucial and so newsworthy that they have to interrupt your most treasured listening habits or reading habits and inevitably depress you as they do depress me at the time they're announced. And then because of this podcast, which deals of the breaking news of the week up to tonight, is likely to depress you as it does me, because it's all bad news. Floods, fires, volcanoes, tsunamis, everything negative. It's really bad news, really depressing news. So I always feel depressed when I hear those announcements, war breaking out, or the number of our military that were killed during the war or during the last few hours. All of the negatives of the week. That's what makes the news, because good news doesn't make the front page or doesn't interrupt your listening habits or your reading habits or anything, because it's not considered dramatic enough to make those headlines or urgent announcements urgent enough to interrupt your favorite programs, your favorite media reports, etc., etc. So I start off each week by apologizing, because all of the news that makes the news, the front page of the Times and the various magazines you may subscribe to or get, or the cable television programs you're tuned to, or this network television program that you enjoy. And as a result, since they depress me at the time I hear them, because it's never good news, it's always some tragedies, the massive assault of children in class as young children and kindergarten and first grade, and their teachers, and every tragic event, public event, the death of some people we love, or outbreaks of diseases throughout the world that threaten our nation, threaten you and I and our families, floods and fires, etc. So before we launch, I necessarily feel it's imperative to apologize to discussing this news, this depressing news, again during our podcast, because that's what we do. We discuss the news of the week prior to the Wednesday evening podcast. And as it depressed me when I first learned of it or heard of it, and now that we are obligated as part of this program that's dealing with the important news of the week as determined by the media and the headlines in the New York Times or the New York Post or your favorite media outlets. So before I launched this program every week, I felt it's imperative or necessary, or at least the right thing to do, is to apologize for any depression that this podcast causes you by the news that we discuss, as it has depressed me when I first heard that kind of news, and it depresses me again as we launch this program, that you're so kind and so helpful in commenting, sending your comments and your insights, and makes me more wise. So it's back. It's great to be back with you. Your Wall Street legend, Morty Davis, the voice of wisdom. And this week, I'm pleased to announce and report that Len Carter is once again back with me at my pleading and insistence, and was kind enough to agree to appear once again to offer his wisdom and his brilliance to this podcast. As I mentioned a number of times, he's a real genius in the terms that every university he's attended to, he graduated with honors, top of his class, including Cornell University, where he earned his undergraduate degree as an electrical engineer, and where he graduated from my alma mater, the Harvard Business School graduate, with honors, as I did. It's the best business school in the world. And he graduated at the top of his class, as I did, with the notation of graduation with distinguished honors, and finally with his attendance at the top U.S. national university that develops more billionaires and high-tech companies and changes our lives, students that change our lives by virtue of what they invent and provide to us, where Len graduated at the top of his class again with honors. So it's great to have you back, Len.
Thank you, Morty. Always good to be here.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. So without further ado, let's get on with the depressing news of the week. Depressing news because it covers the news of the week, the headlines, and the breaking news that's too often interrupted in your favorite programs and your cable favorite offerings, and supposedly all the news that's fit to print, except apparently good news is not so fit to print because it doesn't grab their attention, the media's attention, that who are convinced that good news is not news that is important to push right away or to announces breaking news or put out its headlines. So because I know what we discuss in this weekly podcast being the prior week's news, which is always depressing because the only thing in the weekly news that makes the headlines and interrupts our programs and our lives' favorite activities with urgent breakthrough announcements are bad news that when I first hear them or heard them and made me depressed until I learned from Bishop Sheehan the power of positive thinking and from Dale Carnegie how to stop worrying and start living. And it changed my life. And as a result, I wanted to do that for my spouse and my children and my grandchildren and my best friends, my fellow Americans and my neighbors and my fellow human beings throughout the world. So I spent the next 12 years writing this book, and I recommend it strongly and urge you to run out and buy it as soon as possible, because it'll do that for you, as all the people who have ever bought it and have written to me, and all those who have received it as gifts, as so many of them have written to me, that it's been so beneficial to them. It's been enjoyable while they read the book and has made them truly more content in life and more capable of dealing with the negatives in life and so forth. Because I care about you, I love you, you're my favorite people in the whole world, and I want you to enjoy the benefits of this book as so many others have. People that bought it or people who received it as a gift. And I'm so sure you will enjoy its benefit, its humor, its jokes, and its route to contentment and inspiration that I promise you, if you run out and buy it, or you receive, even if you receive it as a gift, if you don't find that to be true, really benefit from it, enjoy it, and earn lifetime happiness and contentment from the advice of this book, I will make you happy by sending you double the purchase price if you tell me that you didn't enjoy it, you didn't appreciate it, you didn't benefit from it. I'll send you double, send me your purchase slip, and I'll send you double your cost back. So you'll be doubling your money, and you can keep the book. And if you got it as a gift, and if you get the purchase price from the giftee, send me the copy of that if you didn't find it so beneficial, so joyful, and so uplifting, and add to your contentment in life. So it's a pleasure to have you back. It's a privilege, and I always enjoy your voice of wisdom. So thank you for letting me induce you to join us.
Thank you, Morty. Always good to be here. Always good to debate some of the week's topics, which are never too small or too absent to
or ever uplifting.
Yeah, right.
Because it's never good news.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have discussed a lot, and just a few things that maybe we can talk about today. I thought just some of the recapping and current situation with Iran, and then maybe how some of that is falling out into the economy with respect to our new Fed chair and things like that. So I was just looking, and I have here on my phone, I was reading what we heard this past weekend about a deal, a so-called deal that's very close, as the president says, but details haven't been fully released.
Or fully closed even,
Right.
fully consummated.
I mean, right. President Trump says they're really close, but
no cigar.
no, right, exactly. So some of the possible terms they were talking about was a 60-day ceasefire, where the strait would be reopened, and allegedly no tolls. That seems to be a very important issue since it is international waters. U.S. lifts its blockade on Iranian ports.
And since it raises the price of everything that arrives in the United States and other places, because it's so the difficulty to get delivery through that Hormuz
Passage, yep, the straits.
straits
Yep.
that account for about half, maybe a quarter of the
Yep.
all of the deliveries
Yep.
to the United States.
In addition to oil, there's other fertilizers and chemicals and other things that pass through there that affect not just the U.S., but also other countries.
Right.
And therefore, indirectly, they affect us. Since
Absolutely.
whatever we buy,
And add to the whatever inflation already exists.
Right. So even if we could somehow, limit, which we do, the purchases of imported oil, we still will feel the effects of these rising energy prices because they influence and seep into everything else around. But
also, even the trucks that deliver your groceries and your various products throughout the day.
Yep.
Throughout the night.
So one of the things that I think I've kind of been taking notice that seems to be driving the president is, the effect of higher prices, particularly gas prices, and how that is politically unpopular, obviously, and even worse in the case where you've got a midterm election coming up in 6 months or so. So it seems like a primary focus is to get the strait opened so that oil prices can hopefully come down, and that takes some political pressure off the administration and Republicans. One thing that was interesting was that since the beginning, President Trump has been adamant about Iran not having a nuclear weapon and removing all the nuclear dust and uranium from the country. And one of the things that, again, the details haven't been disclosed, but it seems like that may actually be pushed to a later discussion. And I was wondering, and then one other component was that President Trump may be trying to tie this whole broader deal to other countries that have been involved to join the Abraham Accords, which is a noble goal. Just wonder, so in terms of these different pieces, do you think that it makes sense to try to do a global settlement, like everything at once, nuclear, straits, Abraham Accord, or does it make sense maybe to try to do it in piecemeal so that you can, get some benefits along the way? How would you approach it?
I wouldn't approach it anyway this way. We know the solution. We've had a favorable, positive experience with Germany and Japan, with Hitler and Tojo, where we said we want unconditional surrender. Unconditional. No negotiations. We'd still be negotiating with Japan and Hitler if it were not for that position, because after we won, we took over the running of the country, so they could not do. Here, Iran is acting as if they're an equal victor or something.
So you would agree?
They're making a demand.
You would agree with someone like Lindsey Graham, who says this is just a caving to the Iranians, that this is...
Yeah, of course.
This is just
absolutely.
giving in.
Yeah, we have experience. You do unconditional surrender, you take over the country, and then you induce or you implement anything that you want. Here we won the war, and now we're acting like we got to negotiate for some of the rights that we can impose. You know, he said, Trump says we destroyed their army, their navy, and all their leaders. What are you negotiating? Why do they have a right to negotiate? It's beyond me. And we know the solution because we were successful after the Second World War with Japan and Germany both. We never had this kind of issue where we'd still be negotiating.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a valid possibility and concern that if you don't sort of finish the job, that you may wind up with something worse than where you started, because you know that unless this regime is completely changed, and by changed I don't mean just a different president, changed meaning bye-bye,
like we did in Japan and Germany.
And if that doesn't happen, you know that they're not going to be, it's like poking the bear, right? You're creating a situation where they're now more angry with you, don't trust anything that you want to do, and will go likely more secretive and probably restart all their nuclear
to me this is ridiculous,
but much more secretively.
To me this is absolutely ridiculous. I agree absolutely with Lindsey Graham. We won the war. We hit, what's his name? Donald Trump, the president, repeatedly says, we destroyed their army, we destroyed their navy, we got rid of all the leaders, and now we're negotiating as if they were an equal, we're in a stalemate and we're trying to get some benefit out of it. In Japan, we put in, after we got unconditional surrender, we put in Douglas MacArthur, our guy, to run the country. And we didn't have elections for 8 years till we were satisfied they were totally under control. And likewise in Germany, we didn't have elections. Unlike when we beat Iraq in a week or 2 weeks and destroyed them in a war, and then we immediately put in their leader, who they voted in, and then we asked, our troops were there protecting them. They were not there for us. And we asked them if as any member of our military commits a misdemeanor or a criminal act, that our country, our military, or our justice system should try them. And they said, no, they're in Iraq, and we can try them under our system. How is that the win when they're dictating the terms?
We don't have a lot of time left, so let's just quickly shift gears to one of the fallouts from this conflict has been a heating up of inflation. We saw last week Kevin Warsh was sworn in as the 11th Fed chair of the Federal Reserve, with the prior Fed chair term being up, Powell. And so I know we've heard frequently President Trump's belief that one of the ills of the country is high interest rates, and the country would be better off and economically stronger by lowering interest rates. And he also said in the ceremony after the new Fed chair was sworn in that he hopes that Kevin Warsh will be totally independent. Those were his words, totally independent. Do you think that that is going to happen? Do you think that the new Fed chair will remain truly independent and really just look at the data? Because what you hear now in some circles is that we may see a rise in rates before we see a cut in rates.
I know. I don't know.
I don't think President Trump's going to be too happy if the Fed comes out and says we want to raise rates.
I don't believe he's going to accept it. Lower anything but lower rates.
Right.
That's why he's appointing this guy.
Right.
That's why he's been desperate to get rid of Powell.
Yep.
And it's contrary to why the Fed was established, to be independent of political influence. They have an assignment that was described to deal with keeping full employment insofar as the interest rates could impact them, and to keep inflation down, So the president had no way. It was to take any power away from the president so it doesn't become a political thing or a biased partisan thing.
Right. I mean, we're seeing now, something we haven't. I mean, there have been times when the president wasn't in agreement with the Fed for whatever reason, but never to such a degree where, threatens to remove him or fire, somehow indict him or
like any other citizen. He has a right to voice his opinion, but less so because his opinion carries a great weight. The Fed was set up to avoid just that situation. If they're trying to, reduce inflation or reduce unemployment, they have to take actions that, in their wisdom, and the president does select the people under that. He has to stay away from partisan decisions that achieve that. And he could advise the Fed that he'd like that, or he could tell them why, and see if he can make a strong case that would help unemployment and lower.
Right. I mean, they always say, right? You put two economists in a room, we'll have three opinions, right? So, President Trump is a businessman. So do you think that there's any logic or credibility to the belief that lowering interest rates would actually be a good thing? Or do you think that you really have to keep them high in order to
That's the decision that we assigned to the Fed.
Right.
So do I think that it would be a good thing? Yes. But would it be consistent with the assignment that the Fed was issued, was
balance
set up
inflation
for?
And unemployment.
Yeah.
Right. So you think what do you think the right economic move for the short term is? Hold them steady and watch what happens with inflation. Maybe if it goes up,
I'd leave it to the Fed. They get all the statistics. If I get the same statistics, I'd probably make the same decision as the Fed. But that's not the decision of the president, because politically they'll always want to lower just before elections. It shouldn't have anything to do with their political status, their support.
So, all right. Well, we'll see. I think the next meeting is a few weeks from now in June. I think the next Fed meeting is. So we'll see how the new chair handles things. And I think Powell is staying on as one of the governors,
Yes.
right, for some period of time. So we'll see how that interaction goes. But
I hope it doesn't lead to a conflict.
yeah, it's not good.
Because then Congress would have to.
Yeah, and
interfere.
it's just the world doesn't, like you said, it makes the U.S. financial system stronger when you have an independent body like that. And
Precisely.
if people start
Right.
thinking even that there's not the independence, then it undermines the system, and it's just not good for anybody.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that on that depressing note,
Yes.
we'll end, and
We're ending already.
we are.
I thought we're at the beginning.
The end becomes the beginning. Life is a circle.
When you're having fun, time flies.
Yes. So
All right. Thank you for joining me this week again. I love you all. Keep sending me your comments, even if they're highly critical, because even those make me think and add to my wisdom. If I'm not open-minded and can't understand what your motives are or what your logic is, then I'm depriving myself of wisdom. So have a great day. God bless you and all your loved ones. Every day of your life should be better than the day before unto eternity. Bye.